Hi, and welcome to the 12th section of the SwiftUI course, and this is where we're going to talk about background blur, because this is something that iOS is really known for, and I've been using these across my design. So for example, this menu is using a background blur, the bottom card, as well as the background for some of the screens, so it can really make your design even more interesting. It is important to note that the visual effect view, which is what iOS and UIKit calls it, is not available in SwiftUI. But SwiftUI allows you to use UIKit if you choose to. So you can use normal Swift code in order to build your UI. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're just going to use a piece of code from normal Swift, and then we're going to use that for our background blur. We're going to create a new view. And I'm gonna go to my navigator and I'm gonna right click one of the file, new file, SwiftUI view, and then name this one blur view, and then create. So we're gonna use the code that is included in the content of this page. I'm not gonna teach the Swift portion just because it's using a lot of legacy stuff. And also this will change in the future. I'm pretty sure when the beta is out, you're gonna be able to use some sort of a background blur without even using UIKit. So all you need to do is to get the code and then paste it right here. So right after SwiftUI, you're gonna paste all of this code. It's basically using a UI view representable. So that's what allows us to have some legacy Swift code. The code is not simple, and it's about to change anyways because iOS 13 has a lot of new options for the blur effect. But to just give you a little bit of information about this, we're using a UI blur effect, and then the view itself is called visual effect view, and then we're inserting that effect into the visual effect view. Again, not important to learn this at all. I'm gonna go to the content view and then close the navigator, resume, and I'm going to apply the blur effect inside the screen. The blur view can be used anywhere in your project, and it is especially useful in a Z stack because it's gonna take the whole width and height of that container. If you're using a V stack, it's not gonna work the same because it's just gonna stack. So we're gonna use the Z stack, and it's super simple to set up the blur view inside a Z stack. So now, right before the title view, I'm gonna call blur view, parentheses, and then use the auto completion to call the style. And for iOS 12 and previous, we're gonna use .dark, .light, or .extra light. So those are the three options that we can use. In this case, we're going to use extra light. Right now we don't see it because it's set to light, but if I put it to dark, you'll see it. But yeah, you have the option for light and extra light. So I'm going to go to my home, and then I'll make sure that when I summon the content view, I don't have a background. Otherwise, it's going to cancel my blur effect. So now let's test it. I'm going to resume and then preview. And then I'm going to click on this button, but you still can't see it. And so what we can do is put some content underneath. So we can just summon the home list with parentheses. So now I have my home list view that is right underneath everything. So when I click here, you're gonna see this really nice background blur that sits on top of the colored UI in the background. Alright, so now we can just fix our UI so that the title is like our design, so right next to the menu button, and it's gonna push the content a little bit. So let's do that. We're gonna go back to the home list. Let's create our title. We definitely want the title to be outside of the scroll view. So we're gonna need to embed the scroll view inside a V stack. Then we're going to create a new text. So text, parentheses, with a text courses. The style for the large title is going to be font.large title, and we're gonna make it way bolder. So we're gonna use the font weight, set it to heavy. We're going to have a second text, so I can just embed this into another VStack, and that VStack right after the first text, I'm gonna set a second text. The second text is going to say 22 courses. This text is simply going to have a color in the modifier for text color, .gray. We're gonna make the text align to the left, so I'm gonna inspect the VStack, set it alignment to the left. Now you can see that it's kind of centering. There are two ways to go about this. The first one is to set a frame, which is not ideal. And the second one is to use the H-stack. So let's do that. I'm going to put the VStack inside an H-stack. And then with the H-stack, make sure that we have the proper indentation. But right after the VStack, I'm gonna set the spacer. So now it's gonna push everything to the left because using the spacer, we're using the full width of the screen. The way that we want to place our text is that this is going to be pushed a little bit more because it needs to make space for this menu right here. And the way that I set it is that I need these two texts to align with each other so that it looks cleaner to the eyes. The first thing is I'm gonna click the H-stack right here, inspect, set the left padding to 70. And then I'm going to add another padding between the text and the scroll view to be about 40. So padding dot bottom 40. Here we have multiple options, but the most important rule is that the text should be aligned with each other. Usually to make things cleaner, I either align the text from the left side of the card or with the text inside the card. In my design, I have 40 from the left and here roughly 70. So I'm gonna do exactly that. Previously we set it to 30, we're gonna set it to 40 instead. And then for the text inside, I'm gonna have to go to the course view. So jump to definition. And here, the padding for the text, I'm gonna set it so making sure that it aligns. I think 30 should do the job. One trick that I use to see the guide is just to use Shift, Command, and 4 to create this screenshot thing. In fact, I don't use it as a screenshot tool sometimes, I just use it as a ruler. Let's go back to the top so I can add some padding from the top. Here, our indentation is not looking too good, so I'm gonna select everything and Control I, and now it's much better. So I'm gonna use the entire container, which is a VStack. I'm going to command click this, inspect, set a padding of 78 from the top. So it should add this padding right here. And you should see the space. So now I'm gonna go back to home and make sure that it's properly aligned. As you can see, we have my text. It's well aligned, it looks much cleaner, and it's also well spaced with the menu. All right, so before we go, I wanna play with some animations. The first one is I want this to blur when I click on a menu. So let's do that. For the home list, I'm going to put a blur. Let's type .blur, parentheses, and use the first option. We're gonna set the blur to 20. We're gonna use the animation state show, which is what controls the menu. So we're gonna say, is the menu showing? Question mark. If so, set it to 20. If not, set it to 0. So by default, it's not blurred. This is not gonna have any animation, so we're gonna need to add the animation. So .animation, parentheses, .default. Because we're not using any momentum, we don't need to use the spring or the basic. So I'm gonna click here and voila, we have a really nice blue animation. Next, I wanna have some scale animation on the home list. So we're gonna add, right after blur, summon a modifier called scale. And here I'm gonna put the effects modifiers called scale. We're gonna set it to 0.95. This might take a bit of time to show. One trick that I found was to press enter. So it's gonna refresh a little bit and then delete back. So now it's good. We just need to activate it when we show the profile. So we're gonna ask show profile question mark. If so, set to 0.95. If not, set to 1. Awesome, let's test it. So I'm gonna click here and voila, we have a really nice scale animation that happens in the background and that moves a little bit while the background blur is showing up. So that gives a very nice dynamic effect. That's what I wanted to show you today, and I hope you had a lot of fun. In the next session, we're finally going to learn the built-in navigation that comes with iOS, as you can see in the settings page or in most UIs that you find on the iPhone. It's very effective for building lists with minimal styling and a ton of functionalities that comes with SwiftUI. So I'll see you in the next session.